So, Jared, you are the final act.
Yes.
And you have Falling Matt, which was brought a lot of energy. So
Yeah.
I hope that you can bring it home for us.
I will try.
All right. So, BulkLoads, for those that don't know, is in the load matching or load board business.
Yep.
But in a very special commodity, bulk freight, which is different than van freight.
Yep.
Different than reefer, different than flatbed. Love to understand for the audience what exactly BulkLoads are.
Yeah, so BulkLoads, we started a load board in 2011 specifically for the bulk commodity market. A little bit of history about me. I worked in the agriculture industry, commodities. In 2005, I went to go work for a large grain trading company in Kansas City, Bartlett Grain Company. When I got there, I realized one thing that's different in commodities versus general freight, like commodity traders study the freight market more than anything else. I mean, they spend 80, 90% of their time studying freight and 10, 20% of the time focusing on the trade itself. And it was the second week I was on the job, the vice president of the company come up and he said, Jared, I just want you to remember one thing. We are a logistics company that moves grain. And I was fresh, again, never really worked in trucking, but it kind of imprinted on me how valuable truck freight was for the grain industry, but in the general commodity industry. So that kind of planted that seed for me to really figure out. And that was 2005. Started looking at the internet and started looking at these other load boards, obviously DAT, Truck Stop. We all knew them, but they weren't really studying the bulk market. I mean, they were doing the van reefer, flatbed freight, but you get on there, but you can get no activity. So that's what pioneered us to start BulkLoads in 2010 and 11.
Now, why do commodity traders focus on freight versus focusing on grain or soy or whatever it is they're calling?
Yeah, if you think about the grain and commodity market, let's just take grain, for example. There's grain all over the Midwest and really across the country. But the grain companies, the way that they make money is getting it moved through the supply chain as efficiently as possible. So these companies, I mean, they are masterminds of knowing ocean freight, barge freight, rail freight, and truck freight. And again, commodities, if you look at it, railroads out of all love commodities. If you think about it, railroads, they want to move commodities more than they want to move packaged goods or finished product because it's easy. You can load it fast, unload it. That's why you see a lot of railroads. They're big in moving your coal, coke, grains, and all that. So that's where the commodity traders, they just know that, hey, how do you get it moved to the supply chain? And the other thing too, if you think about it, commodities, it's very, very narrow margins. I mean, when they're talking like bushels of grain, I mean, they're making 5 to 10 cents a trade. So they got to know precisely where they are on truck freight. It's another reason in our market, a lot of people don't realize the bulk commodity market, when you're dealing with truck freight, very few brokerages that are involved. I mean, on our board, maybe less than 20% of broker freight. Most of it is direct shipper freight, but it's the commodity traders that are studying the market and working directly with a lot of these trucking companies. And on the other side too, there's not big mega trucking companies in bulk. I mean, some on the liquid bulk side,
quality, bulk mass.
Yeah, some of those, but really, I mean, you're not seeing these big megas out there. The majority of the bulk haulers out there, they're smaller, independent, owner-operator drivers. Most of them don't go coast to coast. Railroads love hauling commodities long distance. So they're very competitive on that. So you don't see a lot of truck freight moving. You're not going to see trucks moving corn from the Midwest to the West Coast. It's all going to get moved by rail. But what you're going to see is this density of trucks that are moving it within that 150, 200 mile radius. They're moving it from the farm to a barge loader, to a rail loader, to a big feed mill, grain terminal, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, transportation cost as a percent of the finished goods is a much higher proportion in a commodity than it is in, say, intermodal.
Yep.
Think of a truckload of Nike shoes. Transportation is going to represent maybe less than 1% of the price of those goods. I mean, it's just a small piece of it. Versus grain or corn, I mean, it could be 40 to 70% of the cost.
Yep.
Of that. And so it's a very different world. And it's most of your freight movement, because you are competing against barge and rail, is most of it within like a 200-mile radius of the hopper or whatever is that where the majority of transactions are?
Yeah, most of what we're doing, most of the freight that we see on our board, it's going to be loaded off the farm or some grain mill in middle of Kansas, and that stuff's going to get moved to usually a bigger city where you got a bigger rail loader, a barge
Is it
loader,
mostly
river
going to
market.
rail? Is it truck to rail typically?
You'll see it over the last 20 years. We've seen a different flow of grains. Obviously, ethanol in the past 20 years has gotten huge. So you've seen these ethanol plants, soybean processors that have come more on the scene, which has pushed more truck freight domestically, but more on the interior. You're not seeing the long haul that you would, and then even the export markets.
So, as you think about, or as I think about the bulk market, you've got the railroads are in it, the barges are in it.
Yep.
Where does from a truck standpoint, is there an opportunity for you guys at BulkLoads to play in either rail or barge, or is your entire world sort of confounded in truck?
We've been asked over the years to get more involved, just to be more involved in the supply chain. We've chosen not to be, just because we know that there's still just an incredible amount more we can do just in the trucking ecosystem of it. We talk about the load life cycle. That's been tossed around a lot, but like, how can we get more involved from the beginning to the end of that life cycle? And that's really what we've done. I mean, over the last 15 years, when we started BulkLoads, we've created an umbrella or a series of companies. So we're not just doing the load board, but we got the factoring, the TMS, insurance arm, permitting, and fuel.
We spent, and I know you've been around, listen to some of the other marketplaces or platforms. I think Jack did a really good job of defining what a platform is and talking about the importance of being a platform. You guys are also a platform.
Yep.
You started out in the load board business. You've expanded, as you said, into insurance, factoring, all this stuff. It feels like a very familiar playbook. How do you guys think about the future of BulkLoads? Are you looking at adding new services? Do you think, one of the things Scott Mostrop talks about is early at truck stop, they want to build everything. Now they want to partner. Some of it is they feel like they need to catch up. Where are you guys sitting on all that?
I think we're looking at still what other products or services we can offer into our ecosystem.
That you would build organically?
We think organically, yeah. We know that obviously our factoring's been one of our largest cash cows, biggest piece of the business, but how do we get more involved with the transactions of that, and not just with the carriers, but also with the brokers? I know obviously TriumphPay, but like, how do we do more of that with some of the brokers that we have in our industry? But even partnering with our shipping companies, we deal, like some of these companies that we deal with, like ADM, Cargill, just on the bulk side, I mean, they're spending millions and millions of dollars. They have a whole back office support of payables. Obviously we have that. So how do we simplify that process? How do we almost become that payment arm? We always say like the ADP for the bulk trucking industry. So that's where we see ourselves in the next 5 years, going deeper, but really looking on the payment side of really doing that. Another option we've been looking at just on the finance side. We know a lot of this equipment's financed. How do we help these owner operators, these guys, 5-10 trucks, give them better financing options?
How many loads a day are you guys seeing across the market?
On the BulkLoads platform, I mean, anywhere from 40 to 50,000.
Better matched or our load?
40 to 50,000 daily postings that are on there.
And are you getting involved in the actual transaction, like what truck stops are wanting to do and highways, is trying to do, and DAT certainly trying to do, is actually make it more like Amazon? Are you doing that, or is it still traditional load board type stuff?
So our TMS system has more auto booking or more helping with that transaction. The load board itself doesn't. We have, looking just because of outside pressures and the pressures that we see in the general freight market, that we are seeing customers that are seeing that in this space and wanting to see that. So
they're
that,
expecting you guys.
Yep,
We'll
see that on the roadmap.
You are the dominant leader in the bulk space. I mean, is there even a competitor of scale?
There's not. There's been a few incumbents over the years, I think, that have tried to get traction, but I know
it's very hard, right? This niche is quite differentiated versus the other. I got to ask about freight fraud. I have heard from folks that are much closer to that world than I am that some of the commodities that are very attractive for criminals are, food products. Pistachios has gotten mentioned. I think it's a very lucrative market. Avocados, things like that. Are you also seeing, is there grain theft happening, or is that just not even?
No, I mean, if you think about it, so the equipment that we're using, I mean, they're bulk trailers. So these big hopper bottom trailers, end dump trailers, I'm not saying that it can't happen, but to be sophisticated enough to unload one of those and siphon a couple buckets of corn, what are you going to go do with that? I mean, go feed it to some cows.
What is that worth?
Yeah, I mean, well, today's corn market's really depressed. I mean, you're less than, I mean, $4 a bushel.
So what would how many? I have no idea how much.
A trailer load of corn is 950 bushels.
So $3,600.
$3,600.
I'm not wasting my time.
Yeah,
What is the most valuable commodity that you guys would haul, or that
we do a lot of fertilizers. So a lot of your bulk fertilizers that come off the river markets that get barged up. So some fertilizers like nitrogen, I mean, you can be several $100,000.
Okay, so that is what, if I'm a, but then you have the whole, if a truckload of nitrogen fertilizer gets stolen, the question I would want to know is, because this is also used for nefarious type stuff. Like there's a homeland security element to that, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Does that ever become a concern, security around those things?
We haven't seen it in our space. Again, we're in rural America, and not saying that.
I hope the fraudsters aren't paying attention.
Yeah, I know, that's right.
That's what's happening next.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of anhydrous ammonia, which is, I mean, obviously used a lot too with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you think about the business, the challenges of building a platform, what was the most difficult or challenging thing to build liquidity? Because we've talked a lot about, and really, Highway, I don't know if Kaney's still in the room, but you know, he's got this vision, or Highway's got this vision to build a liquid marketplace in an incumbent market. You guys took a frontier market of sorts and built one, but how did you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was just the beginning days because it was myself and another co-founder that we bootstrapped this from the very beginning. I started in my basement. One thing I'll say, and this is just advice out there from even maybe younger people looking to start up a business. I valued the relationships I had when I worked at the company dealing with trucking companies. In the early 2000s, again, trucking, like when I worked for this company, trucking had a bad name, had a bad connotation. People didn't want to deal with truckers. They didn't want to make the calls, you know, things didn't work out. So when I got on there, I was like, man, this is more of an opportunity. Why don't we lift these guys up, these small independents, give them a name, treat them better, and so forth. But I'll say I built a lot of really good relationships. I would go out to the truck dumps. I would meet some of these guys. In the evenings before I had kids, I'd go out there and at night and at the scale house, because a lot of these trucks, they come in from Western Kansas. They're dumping until midnight across the scale and meet them. So that was one thing I think that I did right. When we built the Loadboard, I'd reach out and call those guys. And they knew who I was, and you know, I specifically remember some of them like, Jared, you know, we know who you are. We're gonna bet on you.
And what predated the Loadboard? Like you said you built relationships, but what was predating the Loadboard? Was that
finding these guys?
Yeah, I mean, you went from your employer to building the Loadboard. And that's where you started to do the journey of the grind of getting these guys to sign up?
Yeah, I would just go through the list and start calling them. And it was many, again, we're in a small industry. So we're in the bulk agribusiness.
How many trucks would that be?
I mean, if you look at the FMCSA data, it shows 40,000.
Very small niche.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to build how do they, like through social media and stuff?
Today or back then?
Well, both.
Well, I mean, back then we had just lists. I mean, guys they'd call around to different grain companies trying to find loads. You put them on lists and then you just make those calls. I remember my first day when I worked there, we had a clipboard and a list of truckers, and you just call and you start
amazing
matching it up.
Grinded it out. Just
start grinding out. So yeah. So, and again, you talk about it's the chicken and the egg. What comes first, the carriers or the shippers on there? But for me, it was just looking at the market. So harvest time, which is right now, you got shippers are screaming for trucks. Everybody's trying to find trucks to get room to store more grain. So this is the time you go out and you start calling the shippers. You start, hey, we got this load board, we got this load board, we got this load board. The slow months, the winter work, the spring months, you're out, you're pivoting, then you're calling the carriers, hey, we got loads, we got loads. So it's just a slow process that stacks up over time.
Is there any threat? I mean, it was interesting. We had folks up here earlier today Robbie was talking about AI disintermediating. What are your thoughts on AI? You think it's real? You think it's going to actually, is there a chance of AI disintermediating your marketplace?
I think it can greatly enhance, and we're already looking at AI technology on our platforms, because again, there's just so many. It's still very archaic if you look at some of the processes these guys are doing to book loads, to find loads, to talk to brokers. So yeah, I mean, we think that it's going to be a great enhancement to our platform.
building a business in this space is, and building one that's successful that becomes the category king is actually quite difficult. What is the piece of advice that you give a founder in the room?
Be in it for the long haul. I think that was the one thing for me when we started this. Again, we bootstrapped from the beginning, so we didn't have any outside funding. Again, I told my wife that we had 6 months of runway before I would either this thing was going to make money or we were going to have to I was going to find another job. And yeah, it took 8 months. I mean, for us to get going. So yeah, I think just make sure being it for the long haul, have a runway out there to get going. It seems like a lot of businesses today, they very few are bootstrapped. I mean, there's more outside funding, so I don't know if those pressures are on there. But for me, like I was a burn the boats guy. I was the one that like this is going to work. I don't have any other backstops. There's no other options. There's no other side gigs. And like, it was just a prayer every day that, praying to God that this was going to happen, that I was going to make this work. And
Did you have any near-death experiences? Were there moments where this felt like, oh my, like, I don't know what I've done?
yeah, I would say, I mean, there's been, there's been a lot of those. And I think that's the founder mentality. I think it all sounds great in the very beginning. You get it going, and then several months later, you're just like, "What the crap did we just do?" Like, I mean, why do I want the stress? But over building like 6 businesses over the past 15 years, it's the same playbook every time. You build it, and then 6 months later, you're like, "Why did we do this? This was the worst thing ever. Why did we add more stress? People not want us. We have people leaving. They don't like working for the company anymore." But then you just kind of you start finding that path.
We do it to ourselves.
Yeah,
it's a mental illness, right?
It is.
Because you end up.
It's the dopamine hit. You said that one time.
What's that?
It's the dopamine hit.
It is a total dopamine hit. And I find in my own position where I have a successful business and it's great, and then I just get bored. Not that I don't like what I'm doing, but it's almost like, man, I got to go do something new.
Yeah.
I got to have those near-death experiences as a founder, I think are just, unless you've been there, it's insanity. It really is. Because I oftentimes, and this year has been difficult just because it's been a difficult year. And I have asked myself on a number of occasions, why did I do this to myself? And I promise you in 6 months or a year, I'll look back and be like, man, this is amazing. And that's just and then I'll go do something else. And I will get into the position and be like, I can't believe I did this to myself.
I'll say the most recent thing that I've done that's been my new highlight, because again, same deal. I say it's like every 3 years. Is that what you like? Every 3 years, I get bored and like, what's the next thing we're going to do? What's the next excitement? We had a consultant come in several years back, and he said, if you really want to blow this business up, he goes, get it on the media side. And I mean, I'm stealing Craig Fuller's playbook here, but he said, you guys already, and I started a podcast in 2018, the BulkLoads podcast is top 5 trucking podcasts listened to. But he said, if you want to get bigger, he goes, get on the video side of it, because we were just doing audio at that time. And he goes, go out and tell the stories of your customers. So a couple years ago, I hired these video guys. We came in. Well, we started going out and recording the stories of our customers. So we're going out to our Loadboard members. We're going out to a farmer in Washington. We're going to a trucking company in Idaho, a company up in Pennsylvania. But we'll go in and do a full day story and tell them. And then we record it, edit it, and then we release it as a 1 hour, sometimes multi-episode deal. It has blown up we don't have to pay for ads anymore. I mean, we have 300 signups a week and do 0 advertising whatsoever. But the thing is, they find us through our social media, our content. And the thing is we're not out there selling bulk loads. We're not saying, hey, come check out our load board. We're telling the stories of our customers. Somebody told us this, it was a while back. They're like, if you think of Red Bull never really talks about drinking Red Bull. But every commercial you watch, they're jumping out of planes, they're doing crazy stuff. So people just naturally think these people consume Red Bull.
Red Bull is a media company.
It's a media
company. In fact, media people would add actually the definition. It's a horrible tasting drink that happens to be run by a media company. And that's exactly what Red Bull is. And it's selling the lifestyle.
Well, I was thinking about when I love the interview with your father this morning and just the story. And it just got me thinking, it was like, first off, it's like, I'd like you to introduce me to your father and would love to tell that story.
But he was here earlier. I don't know if he still is.
But most people, like, people don't want to get sold to out there, but people love stories, and people love founder stories and business stories. And that's what we try to do with BulkLoads over the last couple of years. How do we story tell the story of trucking and agriculture out there? And again, if you really, the US of A, most of us, we can't go, we can't drift too far apart that we come from agrarian farming background. And most people probably that are here, I mean, they probably have some relatives or it was your grandpa or whatever that came farming. So we're now telling that story and that story of history that we think is
Especially
priceless.
trucking, by the way, real quick. The trucking industry and the farmers have so much in common. And oftentimes old school truckers
Yep.
came from farmers. Because
Absolutely.
you had your 1930s, my grandfather was a farmer that then went out and had great grandfather had trucks. But it was because you had to get the whatever to market. And in those days, it was hard to find a trucker. So
Yep.
you're on. There's so much heritage there. I think is what you're doing around the media stuff is amazing because I think leading with top of the funnel, telling your customer stories, I think is right on. And I applaud you for that. Jared, it's a great story. It's one that I don't think is as I understood or on a lot of people's radar. It's one that I've watched for many years. And congratulations on building a great business and continuing to just double down on those opportunities.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it.